There are things that I'll never be able to share with you. I'm chained to my past.
أعطيني الفرد آدم.
Mobilize a team for Bourine. Smoke them up.
So as you say, there's an amalgamation of stories. There's a lot of stories that we could tell about the region, about everything that's happening. How do you narrow it down to this character of the teacher? Why center it through this figure?
So I am Palestinian by heritage, born, raised, educated in the UK, in London. It was during my sort of travels to what is militarily occupied, colonized Palestine, where I met with so many Palestinians who've experienced firsthand so much of the sort of cruel, absurd things that take place in the film. Children being processed through military detention, home demolitions, illegal settler violence and vandalism. And on the one hand, the sort of socio-political is present and integral to the story, but my focus is on the characters, on the personal. It became a story about parental love, the sort of surrogate father-son relationship that evolves between Bassim and Adam, and this idea of the pursuit of justice. No matter how big the crime or how big the loss, the system you can turn to for justice is one and the same as those committing the crime in the first place. That was something I really was interested in exploring as well.
We have to talk about your leading man. I think you're just immediately drawn to his face, drawn to this humanity that he brings. Can you talk about developing this character?
Saleh Bakri, he's a very, very seasoned actor. I was in Palestine and I talked him through The Teacher, and he listened very patiently and he kept nodding. And then I said to him, "So what do you think?" And he said, "I like it." And I was like, "Okay, so you're going to be the teacher?" And he said, "Okay." And Saleh, he's Palestinian and he gets it, he feels it. He kind of became a muse in some ways for the character of Bassim. I wrote my first few drafts and of course then got it to him. And with time, we actually ended up working on translation. Working with an actor on translation is interesting because then you can develop even the rhythm or the poetry in the language and so forth with your actor. So he loved being able to do that with me and I love being able to do that with him. But when you're working with such a seasoned actor, at some point you surrender the role and you say, right, you know, we've been through it all now. I trust you to do what you're going to do with this role and this character, and he trusts me to be watching and look for the truth in every scene. And he's a very honest man in his acting and as a human being, sometimes brutally so. I remembered that actually 3 days before shooting one of the vital scenes in this film, and he said to me, "Farah, I think that you would probably want to rewrite this scene." Now, had it been someone else, I might have been like, huh. But because I know he knows me well, and I trust him, and he trusts me, and the truth is, he was speaking towards something that I already knew at the back of my mind. But for those who are film writers and filmmakers, it's like, it's exhausting. And sometimes you're like, no one's going to notice, or I'll come back to this sometime, and you never do. And then so he was speaking truth towards something that I already knew I had to do and I should have done a long time ago. But to be told 3 days before by your actor, it was like... And I remember my husband and kids were coming to visit me, actually, that weekend. So the last thing I wanted to do was rewrite a scene. But we discussed the heart of the scene, or what my real intentions were with the scene, and I rewrote it. And I'm so glad I did. So to be able to have that kind of working relationship with an actor is pretty profound, actually.
I wanted to ask about those opening sequences, those opening images. It seems very simple. You're just driving along, showing us a landscape, but you capture so much because we get to see these military vehicles, we get to see those walls, we get to see these checkpoints without you really like pushing them on us. And I'm curious, like, was that also from the script? Like, is that how you always wanted us to introduce the film to us?
That is, unfortunately, what the West Bank is like. We would have a chip in the camera. And if we captured something, we know that they might sort of maybe walkie-talkie the next vehicle or something. There is a chance we could be pulled over. And therefore, we would take the chip out and swap. I was in the vehicle ahead, so if I'd sort of say, okay, can you capture this on the left? Okay, can you capture that on the right? Oh, okay, can we, you know, and I would see what I wanted to capture ahead, and my DOP's in the vehicle behind. Not sure if one of our vehicles is going to be pulled over or not. So it was kind of guerrilla filmmaking, actually, a little bit. But yes, so that I could really just bring you into this world in that opening sequence. Yeah.
Right, which brings me to, obviously this was shot in Palestine. This was shot in the West Bank. Talk to me about what that felt like, because it feels, especially given the story and as you're describing it, like you're almost like in the kind of film that you're creating.
It was one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. I knew where I'm going to be shooting. I've spent a lot of time on the ground there. I'm under no illusion, there's going to be the sort of obstacles like checkpoints and roadblocks. And I remember, like, even on one weekend, everyone went away, and I didn't. But then there was Israeli roadblocks that they'd set up around the Nablus area, and no one could come back for 4 days. Now, in the world of filmmaking, that's a nightmare. And all I could imagine was just dollar signs flying into the air and unfinished sets. Like, literally, I went into panic. Now, okay, this is independent cinema, shit happens. But what I didn't really anticipate, and maybe I should have, but somehow I just didn't prepare myself for, was that, this is not a period drama. It's not something that happened a long time ago and that we're sort of reenacting on the ground and the land in which it happened. It's unfolding around you in real time. And that became quite mentally and emotionally overwhelming, because you suddenly felt a really real deep responsibility and pressure to do justice to the injustice that's unfolding around you. For example, there's the scene in the film where the olive groves are being torched. While we were shooting, we got word that in the actual village of Barine, where Bassim al-Saleh, the teacher, is from, illegal Israeli settlers had descended again and were torching the olive groves. And we could see the smoke from where we were. And it really hits home. This is really real. And trying to stay upbeat, trying to finish the film, trying to lead a team, trying to keep, make sure everyone's safe, and realizing that my cast and crew that were from Palestine, this is their lived reality. And the rest of us get to leave. And that also kind of left a sort of a deeper meaning for everything, but a sort of, okay, we have to finish this. This story must be told, in that sense, more so than when I'd arrived.
Which brings me to the question, because of course, it's been a few years since you've shot, and it's been a few years since you played festivals, and it's arriving in 2025, and it feels like a lifetime has happened. And so I'm curious how that has felt to sort of have this movie be traveling the world while we're watching what's happening, for instance, in Gaza.
I never could have imagined that this film would arrive at such a crucial juncture in the discourse. Like you said, I wrote it 5 years ago. We made it, we shot it 2.5 years ago. It premiered a year and a half ago, And this sort of imbalance in value for human life has really culminated into a time where it's almost like there is no value for Palestinian human life. I mean, we're talking about tens upon tens of thousands of Palestinians being killed, maimed, hundreds of thousands actually, if we're talking about maimed and burned and buried under the rubble, and over 2 million Palestinians displaced from their homes and their lives and their livelihoods. And honestly, as a Palestinian, this sort of moral trauma of what we're witnessing, and sort of the rules-based order and international law, and it's really been really overwhelming. The reception the film has been beautiful, actually. Just allowing for a context, a deeper understanding, a human connection to these people. And on the other hand, for me, it's been a privilege. I'm so grateful to have this film at this time, because otherwise I think I would have gone crazy by what we're witnessing. It's beyond comprehension. I don't know in the US. I don't know what you see really, and it's certainly not what the rest of us outside are seeing. And it really, for me, Palestine is the sort of wound through which the whole world is bleeding at the moment. It's been therapy for me, and a form of solidarity, to be honest. So yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful sentiment in which to end. And so I wanted to thank you for the film and thank you all for staying. Round of applause for our filmmaker.